threw you under the bus at every turn. And this is clearly something that Donald Trump, okay, this discourse happening, let's see how it works out. All these guys are still in the mix, and there's only one person that's going to make this call, and it's President-elect Donald Trump.
And you wonder,
make it when he wants
if this election will be the one that, in this case, might get through the easiest. Because where do you want to have your pitch battle? Do you need to have Rudy Giuliani? But his international business ties and some other things might make it a pitch battle. Would Ambassador Bolton, who had such a hard time he was actually a recess pick of George Bush as UN ambassador, do you want to have that battle? Or do you want to have something to make it a little bit easier?
Sure. I mean, advisors will debate those things because you got to save your political capital for the right moments and right positions. But my speculation, and I don't know this for sure, but would be that Mr. Trump wants to pick the best person for the job and then go to battle for that person. And probably feels like with Giuliani and some others, the business tie problems are a little bit overhyped. You can lock in Republicans and get a lot of Democrats that would still support.
Over the weekend, I met this lady. She lost her son fighting for our country. Her daughter-in-law was pregnant at the time, and they named the son after her child. It's Thanksgiving weekend. The lady was in tears when I was talking to her. It was the book signing this weekend, and people were so they were pro-Trump, they were pro-Fox News, they were pro-veterans. And then I was talking to her, I said, so what do you think about this school, Hampshire College? What do you think about the school that when Hillary wins, they put the flag at half-staff, and then they're saying when she lost, they're saying now actually no American flags can fly on that campus. So look at this. These are veterans that are out there protesting, flying that flag proudly. Here's one of the veterans at the protest. This is what he had to say.
Raise your flags, everybody. Raise them high in that air.
This stands for all the veterans around the whole nation. Everybody who fought for this flag. It's more than just a symbol.
I would die for this flag. I fought for this flag. I live for it. You all live for it.
The college president said they're no longer going to actually fly a flag on the flagpole at Hampshire College because it's just not worth the trouble.
First of all, thank God for those vets. Look at that. They're not white, brown, black, or otherwise. They're Americans, and they look to that flag as a symbol of unity. But on college campuses today, and this isn't just on this campus, the flag is seen as a divisive issue. They teach that our history is racist, that our history is one of imperialism, that America is not a special or good country. When that happens, you get administrators, you get students, and eventually you get voters who don't think America is a special place. That kind of a rally is what Donald Trump is speaking to. Our flag is special. America is a special place. And it shouldn't be that. That's not what we should be debating. What we can all stand for the anthem and then disagree about the things that don't work in this country. Thank goodness those vets are doing it. But it's not just a flag for vets. The flag's for every single American. So every American should be outraged about
Speaking of something that doesn't work for vets in particular is the VA. The Denver Post has got a great op-ed out this weekend called Why American Vets Can't Wait for Slow Change. And what it says is that incremental change doesn't seem to be working.
That's exactly right. They have supported, Denver Post has supported incremental change because they want to be measured about it. Now they're looking at the wreckage of the last 2.5 years and, frankly, what vets face. They say it's time for an overhaul. It's time for people to be fired that aren't getting the job done. It's time to give veterans true choice and allow them to go to a private sector doctor or the VA. And there's bills in Congress, some of which are compromised, watered-down bills, and then some real bills that have some teeth to it. We got to start supporting the bills that really matter. And then Donald Trump creates an amazing opportunity for the VA to be transformed, to put the veteran at the center. It's not about the VA. It's about the vet. Vets first. And when we do that,
he's got to pick the right person.
That's right.
All right.
I'm sure he will. All right.
You got it.
Thank you very much for joining us live.
Black Friday is seeing green. Stocks closing at record highs for a third straight week since Mr. Trump's election victory.
Huge sales expected to drive gains when the market opens at 9:30 Eastern Time here in New York City.
So how long will it last? I asked Stephen Ainsley. They came up with nothing. So we had to call in financial expert and author Nicole Lapin. Nicole, how long will it last?
I think it's going to last quite a long time, guys, if Friday was any indication. We saw online sales, in particular, top $3 billion. That's the first time we've ever seen it hit that mark. And now retailers are stress testing their websites because we're going to see even more of that today. It has been estimated that 10 minutes offline for major retailers can equal $2 million in lost sales. Wow. So time is money today, guys.
Okay. So, I saw all the crowds on the television coverage, and it looked like the stores had a good business as well. But I'd imagine some people were at the stores actually looking to see if the price they were looking at there at Walmart or Kmart or Target was the best deal out there, right?
Yeah, we're not shopping like it's 1999, guys. Cyber Monday is not one particular day. It's really been like a cyber week. And we've been seeing, you know, those lines that we're looking at right now dissipate a little bit, off about 10%. Online shopping, obviously, up about 20% now. It has been dethroned. Cyber Monday is no longer the online shopping queen, I will say, or king of the week. But the night is young for me in Los Angeles. The day is young, of course. So 75,000 deals on Amazon alone. So we'll see what ends up happening today.
Wow. And I think they're going to change them every 5 minutes. All right, Nicole, we thank you very much for joining us live from L.A. today.
Thank you, Nicole.
Today's kind of a weird morning for me.
Why?
It's the first day in 5 days that I haven't started the day with pumpkin pie.
Really? Oh,
I have pumpkin pie every morning.
That's just not fair. How do you
makes
stay
a pumpkin
thin?
pie cereal.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
How do you stay thin and you eat pumpkin pie for breakfast?
And
That's
about that much
not
whipped cream.
fair. And hamburgers, right? Here I'm eating like turkey bacon or turkey burgers and
Moderation.
fruit and vegetables.
I sit here for 3 hours. I don't do anything. I just chit chat and chew. So we got a busy show. Hey,
You're officially jealous.
Stop it. Tucker's going to be with us in about a minute. Maybe 2 minutes. Actually, how long is the newscast, Heather?
Just about a couple minutes.
Okay.
And Steve, I have to confess, I had a piece of pumpkin pie for breakfast.
It's the best.
Did you really? Today?
Yeah.
No, not today. The day after Thanksgiving. It was delicious.
It's great.
All right. Good morning. Good morning to all of you. I've got a couple headlines to bring you right now. Hundreds of passengers finally reaching their destination this morning after a long and horrifying night of travel. The engine on their original plane catching fire mid-flight. One passenger tweeting out this video of the American Airlines jet as it finally landed in Albuquerque, relieved. That plane was flying from Dallas to Las Vegas when passengers heard a loud thud and they saw flames. No word on the cause, and thankfully, no one was hurt. Well, new overnight, a potentially deadly terror attack foiled in the Philippines. Police detonating an IED just 60 feet away from the U.S. Embassy in Manila. Officials believe an ISIS-linked group was behind that attempted attack. The bomb was left inside a trash can by someone riding in a taxi early this morning. Police say it was the same type of explosive that killed 15 people in a market in the Philippines earlier this year. And a desperate search underway right now for the shooters who sent bullets flying on Bourbon Street, leaving one man dead and 9 more injured.
We will find them, and we will go to the ends of the earth to make sure that we bring them to justice.
Tourists and partiers in the area are running for their lives on New Orleans' busiest street early Sunday morning. Police now believe the shooting started as an argument between 2 people. All of the victims were innocent bystanders. And this is a terrific story. We love this one. Starting today, drink beer and win big. Bud Light randomly hiding some gold cans, you can see it right here, among their signature blue cans for a chance to secure Super Bowl tickets for life. 38,000 gold cans are now floating around in 18, 24, and 30 packs of 12-ounce Bud Light, you know, the containers. So to win, you have to take a picture and post it on social media with the hashtag SBTix4Life, Super Bowl Tickets for Life. A grand prize winner will be picked on January the 16th. And those are your headlines. How terrific is that?
That's awesome.
Yes.
That can in the picture looks a little green to me, so don't throw it away. If it's not a true gold, and it's a little bit of a lime green,
Right.
It'll
you're
still
a
taste
winner.
great.
Keep it.
It'll taste great.
Hey, I wonder what Tucker Carlson did over the Thanksgiving vacation.
Well, let's ask him.
Tucker, what'd you do?
I just drank Bud Light, waiting for that special gold can. I drank Buckler. No, I went fishing in Florida, as always. Come on.
Fantastic.
Buckler is a great non-alcoholic beer, isn't
Yes,
it?
it is.
That's my favorite
I totally agree.
Take that, O'Douls.
Okay, you know, they might be actually drinking over at Trump headquarters because, you know, Jill Stein has thrown an IED into the whole party over there with this recount request. Do you really think she thinks the Russians rigged the election?
Well, thank you for saying that, because that's what it's really about. And most stories covering this don't mention that. The underlying impetus for this recount is the idea that the voting machines the electronic voting machines were somehow rigged or controlled by someone outside the government, most likely the Russians.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big allegation. Now, I don't dismiss anything. There's no evidence of that, but I mean, I'm open-minded. I want to see the evidence. This recount doesn't bother me, actually. I don't think it's likely to change the outcome, and if there's a suggestion that happened, let's find out. Trump, meanwhile, is also making, as you know, a suggestion that the election was rigged, saying that 2 to 3 million people voted illegally. That's also being dismissed as a crackpot theory, and maybe it is. There's no evidence for that either. But both of these together add up to something pretty significant, which is people don't believe in the veracity of the election results on either side, and that is a massive problem. I really think there needs to be some kind of investigation into the results, not to overturn them, but to reassure the rest of us that the system works.
No, Tucker, there's no way. This recount does nothing but put more doubt, more grist in the mill, more.
Yeah, you may be right.
It just does nothing but hurt the president-elect. And for Jill Stein to get traction when she didn't matter all for the last 18 months is unbelievable to me.
I think the purpose of this, from the perspective of Jill Stein, is not to make certain that the system is one of integrity. I absolutely agree with that. And the effect might be to delegitimize in the minds of some on the left Donald Trump, but he's already delegitimized in their view anyway. I just think we need to take 3 steps back and actually make certain that the average person believes in the sanctity of the system. And here's how you do that. By making sure that only people who are eligible to vote do so. Do you know how many states require, for example, proof of citizenship before voting? Out of 50? 0. Only 1, Kansas, tried, and in September that requirement was overturned by federal judges. So look, there are over 10 million people here illegally. There's obviously a massive incentive on the part of the left for them to vote. Why do we have a system where they can vote? You know, we have got over 10 states issue driver's licenses to illegal aliens.
Sure.
So,
Yeah,
like, there is the capacity for fraud.
You know, Tucker, you brought something up, and it just reminded me. If they're, let's say the Russians did hack into the Wisconsin voting machines. Would you have the Wisconsin Secretary of State do it, or would you have the NSA do it? I mean, maybe they're calling the wrong people to look into whether or not.
That's exactly right. I mean, look, this is a major allegation that foreign power somehow, by remote, controlled American voting machines. By the way, if there's any proof at all, any suggestion that that's actually true, that's a 5-alarm fire in the center of our democracy.
Yeah.
I mean, we really need to get on that. It's a pretty outrageous thing to say if you don't have proof, to allege or even imply, which they absolutely don't. But, I mean, shouldn't somebody say, okay, let's take a sober look, not necessarily recount the votes, but at the voting machines? Like, what are you saying? And press the people who are pushing this to be specific. Like, what exactly are you saying?
Yeah,
no one's doing
exactly.
that.
There should be more proof.
Let's talk about the transition team, because Kellyanne Conway was and Gingrich on the Sunday shows talking about how they're not for Mitt Romney. But if Trump chooses Mitt Romney, my thought was she's risking a lot, because what if he chooses Mitt Romney? What does that mean for her?
Well, she's obviously, and this is just my view, I think she's a very brave person to say that. She clearly means it.
Yeah, I do too. I agree.
And if this is the new era we're living in, now everyone in Washington is scoffing, how dare she speak out of turn and without permission? But my view is how refreshing it is to see someone say what she really thinks on television for once. I mean, she's making a real case, and it's two parts. The first is, if Mitt Romney was, had a lot of support among Republican voters, he probably would have been the nominee. He doesn't, and therefore he wasn't. And so there are a lot of Trump voters who don't want to see this happen. And second, maybe more significantly, does Mitt Romney agree with Donald Trump's foreign policy positions? That's kind of a basic question. And I think the answer is probably no. So for her to say this, I mean, I thought it was great.
It's funny you say what the reaction is from folks in Washington, the establishment, because everywhere else, like in the South and in the flyover states, they're all applauding Kellyanne for saying that, because they're mad at him for what he said, and he didn't support Donald Trump over the last year. Should he apologize?
But also, how nice is? Oh, should Romney apologize?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. You'd have to think there would be some kind of, reckoning or reconciliation between the two of them. If you say a guy is too immoral to be the president of the United States, and then you say, I'm going to serve in his cabinet, I mean, there's got to be a transition from one to the other. Right. But I just think, Kellyanne Fitzpatrick saying what she thinks. Right. I mean, in D.C., a scandal is something that we didn't expect to happen, I guess. Right. But I hope we see more of this.
And I hope I meet Kellyanne Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, is that her maiden name?
Conway. I feel so bad.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I've known her for so long.
All the
her name
Irish
was
are
Kellyanne
not the same.
Fitzpatrick.
Okay, please,
Heather
Tucker.
says that's her maiden name.
Yeah. All right, so you know before.
I beg your pardon.
Right, so the other thing is, the word is that Donald Trump is not happy that Kellyanne Conway did this, so it's we're wondering if they're boxing him in and doing it. And personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with Mitt Romney. It's just that Mitt Romney came out and went against Donald Trump, so you have to think it's going to take a couple of years for him to convince people in a few interviews that he's not, and when there's a transition, maybe that'll be a good time for Romney, if there's an opening that he likes, to go forward. But just the last time we heard him talk, he was begging us not to vote for Donald Trump. Meanwhile,
and again, on moral grounds.
Yeah.
You know, he's like disgusting. You can't vote for him. You know?
All right, let's talk, if we can, about sanctuary cities. Among the many things that that Donald Trump says he's going to do is going to stop it and deny federal funding for those cities that do it. Where is that in the things to do list if Tucker Carlson handed Donald Trump a things to do list?
Well, I mean, I think it's maybe number 1 or 2. I mean, what's so remarkable to me as someone who's been paying attention for the last 20 years is for generations, liberals have said the states do not have a right to ignore federal law. That was the lesson of the civil rights era. That's why Orville Faubus was wrong and President Eisenhower was right. The state of Arkansas said, we're just not doing that. And the Fed said, no, you must, because it's federal law. And liberals, and me too, have said, yes, that's exactly right. And now they're saying, you know what, if there's a federal law that we disagree with, we're just going to ignore it, and there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, the two cannot coexist. And so as a theoretical, as a matter of principle, I think it really matters, but also as a practical matter, you can't have cities where people who are totally, unknown, their origin is unknown, are floating around and living. It's a threat to national security. And we know this from the 9/11 report. We know that I think it was 6 out of the 19 hijackers had violated immigration law. And one of the key recommendations of that report was you've got to kind of know who's living in your country or else there are potentially really bad consequences. That's common sense. And so these mayors, for political reasons, are ignoring that, and I think that cannot stand.
Not just mayors, it's governors down in Texas. Greg Abbott was responding to a tweet. A guy said, hey, the city of Austin just reinforced that they will forever be a sanctuary city. And then he came back and he said, yes, I'm going. Is there anything you can do to reverse it? And the governor said, yes, I'm going to sign a law that bans sanctuary cities. Also, I've already issued an order cutting funding to sanctuary cities. That's really what Donald Trump can do as commander-in-chief. He can cut off the funding just like that.
Well, it's a little much to say to the federal government, look, we're not going to obey your laws. We reject your laws, man, but we still want the subsidy. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like a little like one of your teenage kids saying, I'm not going to obey anything you say, and up yours, I'm giving you the finger, but you still have to, pay me, $500 a month and my tuition. I mean, like, you can't have both, sort of, right?
All right, Tucker Carlson, it was a great start to your show at 7 o'clock, and this week, somewhat controversial. You're going to do a best of Tucker Carlson, looking back at the week that was.
It's early, yes.
That's
I'm also doing an autobiography.
Tucker, congratulations on the success.
Thanks, guys.
Everyone's
It's great to see you.
We're all happy
and
for you.
especially you, Ainsley. Thank you.
I love you.
His favorite.
Thank you.
His favorite. As usual.
Sorry, guys.
Points right away.
All right, straight ahead, celebrations over the death of Cuban dictator Fidel Castro, but in Washington, new questions about what the president-elect will do now.
There isn't going to be a one-way relationship from the United States to Cuba without some action from the Castro administration.
Okay, we're live with the deal that could be in jeopardy coming up.
And 1,000 veterans strong protesting after a college lowered the American flag to mourn Hillary's election loss. And now you're about to hear their message to America.
Stands for all the veterans around the whole nation, everybody who fought for this flag. It's more than just a symbol.
We are back with the Fox News Alert, a third straight night celebration in the city of Miami following the death of former Cuban dictator Fidel Castro.
But in Havana, a 9-day period of mourning is underway for the brutal ruler, and a memorial service is set to begin in less than an hour.
Now, Rick is in Little Havana in Miami. Big difference. Many in Miami's community are calling for a change now that Fidel is dead, but Raul is still there. So what's going to change, Rick?
Good morning, Brian, Steve, and Ainsley. Miami has a very large and influential Cuban exile community. They've certainly been celebrating the death of Fidel Castro, but they do believe that they say change should come in Cuba now that Fidel Castro has died. And they had a very emotional meeting yesterday at the Bay of Pigs Museum, not far from here, to discuss plans for a big rally, a more serious rally later this week that they say should protest the lifting of sanctions by President Obama against Cuba, because they say nothing has been done to improve freedom or human rights on the island nation. So these Cuban exiles say they will rally in support of liberty and democracy in their homeland.
A new country, a beautiful country with free commerce and liberty.
Thanks God, everything is going to change now, I think. The darkness of Cuba is dead. It's dead. A chapter has been closed.
The organizers are hoping that thousands of people will turn out for that rally on Wednesday afternoon. And during that time, guys, as you mentioned, it's also the 9 days of mourning in Cuba as Fidel's ashes make their way across the country.
Right, but it's not mourning there in Little Havana. Do we expect another day on this Monday of celebrating?
Cowbell?
Well, we know people will be here because of the amazing Cafe Cubano and the empanadas here, which I can tell you were on point this morning, as they always are. But, you know, we have seen large crowds here. We expect more crowds again today because the Cuban people here in Miami want Cuba to know how they feel about the death of Fidel Castro. We have seen them banging on pots and pans, waving the red, white, and blue flags of both Cuba and the United States, celebrating, honking horns, and preaching liberty, saying that, you know, the death of Fidel is a good thing and that what needs to happen now is change, guys.
Yep. Hopefully for the Cuban people it does. Let's see if anything changes about our policies towards Cuba.
Yeah, exactly. Rick, thank you so much.
Meanwhile, coming up on this Monday, Democrats tried to bait millennials with promises like this.
Tuition free. Tuition free. Tuition free. 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 Free.
We love free, but we just learned you might not need that free tuition after all.
And a contender for the DNC chief spot once wanted to make a separate country for black people. Our next guest explains why. We have some quick headlines for you. In his final weeks in office, President Obama pushing for a flurry of executive actions. The White House now reviewing nearly 100 so-called midnight regulations. But Mr. Trump has pledged to repeal every single executive order. And it's the campaign promise that made Bernie Sanders so popular.
Make public colleges and universities tuition free. Tuition free. Tuition free. 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 Free? Free.
But maybe we don't need free college after all. In the last few years, at least 50 public colleges and universities across our country have lowered tuition for out-of-state students by more than 10%. That's great news. All right, Steve, over to you.
Step in the right direction. Ainsley, thank you. The left is looking for a new DNC chair, but are they looking too far to the left? Apparently their top choice is that man right there, Minnesota Congressman Keith Ellison. He's taking heat for extreme comments from his past, including once upon a time calling for a separate country here in the United States for African Americans. Is this what the party leadership has in mind? Joining us right now for his reaction is Kevin Jackson, Fox News contributor and executive director of the Black Sphere, joins us today from St. Louis. Kevin, good morning to you.
Good to talk to you, Steve.
So explain to us, if you will, because I'm sure you did a little of the research, how Keith Ellison suggested a black state.
Well, it's not so much that he suggested it. You guys have already pretty much teased that that is what he said. I think the bigger implication is the idea that people call Donald Trump racist, when this is the person that the Democrats want to lead their party, a person who says black people should have a separate state. And he's endorsed by Bernie Sanders, he's supported by Chuck Schumer. Many of party leadership of the Democrats support a person who wants to essentially peel black people out of a country that we are a very good, an integral part of, and make a separate state. I would ask Keith Ellison what he thinks Africans coming from Africa are, why they come to the United States. They don't come to the United States to be black. Africans come to the United States to become Americans, not to become blacks.
Sure.
And so this idea that the Democrats condone these types of racist policies, quite frankly, I'm happy to see Keith Ellison. I'd love to see him become the new Democrat leader, because he certainly represents them very well.
So you feel that if he were to become the leader of the DNC, he would pull the DNC so far to the left, it would be better for people in the middle and to the right?
Certainly. Keith Ellison is what I call an ethnocentric racist. And everything about him has nothing to do with making America better, making the Democrat Party better. It has to do with essentially catering to blacks. And look, the policies that Donald Trump and many on the right are trying to implement will raise the ocean. It will raise all the boats in the ocean. What Keith Ellison wants to do is pretend that blacks have some unique problems in America, which we don't. The problems that blacks face in America are problems caused by liberals, problems caused by Democrats, and Keith Ellison wants to pretend that it's something different. It's not. It's that. And if all we need to do is get sanity back into politics, and a perfect example, Steve, is if you were to reverse this, if Donald Trump or any other Republican had said what Keith Ellison said, do you believe that we could be touting this person as a leader within the Republican Party or a leader in the conservative movement?
Sure.
The answer is no. He'd be considered blatantly racist.
Yeah, that is such a good point. I wonder, you know, and I don't know that anybody has queried him, if he were to lead the DNC, if they would be behind this recall election, that the recount, that is to say, in Wisconsin, that is being waged by the Green Party right now, which, you know, Jill Stein came in fourth. The Democrat came in second, and yet she's the one who's asking for all the votes to be recounted. Seems a little odd.
Well, all these things, Steve, point to the desperation of the Democrats. We're talking about a group of people who have lost an election fair and square. They believed in their heart of hearts that they were going to win, because that's the fallacy of their belief system, is that they think that they're on the right track. Many of America were talking about this for years, and certainly over the last year. What's interesting about this is, yet again, the Democrats have been talking about, we ignored flyover country. We ignored the blue-collar white vote. And then what do? They want to put an ethnocentric black racist in charge of the party, because that's going to bring back the blue-collar white vote. That just shows you the level of idiocy that exists in that party.
Well, let's see what they wind up doing. Kevin Jackson, we thank you very much for joining us today from St. Louis. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure, Steve.
All right. What do you think about that? Email us, friends@foxnews.com. Meanwhile, the president-elect and his possible pick for Secretary of State, Mitt Romney, once enemies, now seem to be friends. But remember this.
Donald Trump is a phony, a fraud.
Ouch. Can those two really let bygones be bygones, or will Romney have to apologize? And what would that be like? Ed Henry, who had this story over the weekend, is here next with an update. And this was not supposed to happen. Pop singer Ed Sheeran, that is to say, attending a knighting ceremony when things went terribly wrong. Now it's time for your shot of the morning. Rudolph's apparently got a new gig. Domino's Pizza in Japan is taking a page out of Santa's playbook and training reindeer to deliver pizzas in snowstorms.
But animal lovers, don't worry, because Domino's is working with experts to ensure the welfare of the reindeer, including pinpointing the maximum weight that they can hold comfortably and just how far they can actually carry it in the snow.
Right. I don't know if I want that pizza that just fell off the sled. Customers can even track their orders. Each reindeer will be fitted with a GPS device. That's great. And plus, reindeer like to work. I mean, they want stuff to do. They have nothing to do.
Yeah, but aren't they supposed to be flying through the air?
Yeah, isn't Santa supposed to be on that sleigh?
Well, that's so much money. It wouldn't make it affordable.
He works in a couple of weeks. Ed Henry was working over the weekend. He joins us live right now.
You know, they put a GPS chip in one of my ears, and they just kept pulling me back into the studio.
And they did. They actually, it was a bit of an attraction.
It's bottom of the barrel.
Well, the thing is, Ed, people want you to work because the most exciting story right now in the transition is the most important position, arguably, and that's Secretary of State. Yeah. This thing is being played out in public. The latest report is Kellyanne Conway is doing this in defiance of what Donald Trump wants.
Really remarkable. I mean, look, this all started really on this show on Wednesday. You guys had Mike Huckabee on, and he said, you know, it'd be ridiculous if Mitt Romney got this, because I think folks like Huckabee, Giuliani, Gingrich are all looking at this saying, we were really loyal to Donald Trump, and we're, you know, not getting the key jobs in this administration. Why is this guy, who called him a phony and a fraud, getting maybe the biggest job in the cabinet? And then I heard on Thursday from someone very senior in the transition, and we reported over the weekend, that there's a discussion going on between President-elect Trump and others about whether Mitt Romney should have to apologize in some public way, a letter, a statement or something, to try to clear the air after all of that and try to bring the party together. What I find interesting is that over the weekend I also heard that Mike Pence was involved in this, that the vice president-elect was on the phone with Mitt Romney. It also tells me that that it's not over, despite the criticism from Newt Gingrich on this show yesterday, Kellyanne Conway on multiple shows. But look, at the end of the day, Romney is still viable here.
Sure.
Because one man is deciding this. It's actually President-elect Trump. And Steve and I were talking in the hallway a few minutes ago, and I was thinking back to, I asked George W. Bush a question as president in 2006 in the Rose Garden about all these critics of Donald Rumsfeld. And they wanted him fired over the Iraq War. And if you remember, George W. Bush's answer was, I hear the critics, but I'm the decider.
That's right.
And his critics were all mad at, oh, George W. Bush won't listen to anybody. But you know what? He stuck with his people. He was loyal.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, if Donald Trump wants Mitt Romney as Secretary of State, it's going to happen.
And what if
regardless of what the others.
What if he does choose him? Then what does Mitt Romney need to say to the Donald Trump voters who are upset with him?
Well, I think, look, what Mike Huckabee said on this program almost a week ago was prescient. He was saying there's got to be some sort of public acknowledgement that he didn't just say, I'm not voting for Donald Trump. He didn't just say, I disagree with him on foreign policy. He said he's a bad guy. His character's wrong. He's a fraud.
He went out of his way.
You have to do something in the estimation, not of me. I'm just reporting what people around Donald Trump are saying. They believe that there has to be some public mea culpa.
This is what I heard constantly among other Republicans, including lawmakers, was, I don't understand where this is coming from. I tried to call him and talk to him out of doing this. We don't understand where this is coming from. And these are some of these people, two of the people that said it to me were never Trumpers.
Sure.
So I just think he doesn't need to apologize. I just think he needs to explain himself.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things at work. One is, you know, some of these same critics who were saying back in the campaign and then during the beginning of the transition, Donald Trump won't listen to anyone. He doesn't want to hear other voices. He only wants, you know, a small kitchen cabinet around him.
He's the decider.
He's the decider, and now he's reaching out. And maybe he just thinks, you know what, I want to bring in someone who's been a critic and sort of unify the party, maybe unify the country. Maybe not, but that could be one thing
he's
here.
Measured, he's smart, he looks the part, acts the part.
Mitt Romney?
Yeah.
Well, and people inside the transition also tell me there's something else going on here, which is about Rudy Giuliani, which